If you are here to be comforted, leave now.
For what I am about to unveil is not meant for the tame, nor the pure, nor the ideologically well-behaved. It is for those brave enough to descend into the ancient catacombs of the soul where desire wears the face of divinity, and vice, strangely enough, is the mask of sacred power. You see, our culture has exiled the mature woman to the shadows, condemning her erotic fire as vulgar, her appetite as grotesque, and her boundaries as cold. But the truth lives in the unconscious, and the unconscious has no morality. It only knows wholeness. Tonight I will speak to you not of virtues, but of vices, those dark jewels hidden in the folds of the feminine psyche that make a woman not merely desirable, but unforgettable. These are not sins. They are invitations to individuation. So let us begin, not at the altar of what is proper, but in the abyss where transformation begins. For the woman who dares to claim her shadow becomes not just human but mythic. There comes a moment in a woman's life, not always visible to the world, when she tires of the masks that once kept her safe. She no longer finds comfort in polite obedience, or in silencing the tremors of her true voice. She begins to understand that to be seen in her wholeness is not merely a risk. It is a rite of passage. In this state, vulnerability is not a plea, it is a declaration. When a mature woman strips away the pretense of perfection and reveals her desires, her regrets, her raw longing, and even her shadows, something alchemical begins to stir. It is not weakness, it is power, because it is truth. I have said, one does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. And indeed, when a woman dares to expose what lies beneath those hungers she once denied, those wounds she once buried, she is not falling apart. She is falling inward, into her own depths, and in doing so, she invites the world into a more sacred intimacy. There is nothing more sexually magnetic than a soul in full ownership of itself. That which is hidden has a kind of psychic weight. It drains our vitality. But when it is spoken, when it is revealed, it liberates not only the self, but also the other. For in her honesty, the man is granted permission to shed his armor as well. I remember a patient, a woman of considerable grace, who feared expressing her deeper desires because she thought they would threaten her dignity. But when she finally confessed what she truly wanted from life and love, she did not collapse. She expanded. Her presence shifted. She became luminous not because she pretended to be more than she was, but because she dared to be fully what she was. There is a fire in truth undressed. And when that truth is feminine, unapologetic, and aged by life, it doesn't whisper. It roars. There is a quiet rebellion that occurs when a woman ceases to orbit around the needs of others and begins, for the first time, to root herself in her own sacred center. It is not loud. It is not cruel. But it is unmistakably powerful. Sacred selfishness, as I have come to understand it, is not the indulgence of vanity. It is the reclamation of erotic sovereignty. It is the bold, conscious decision to no longer barter her essence for belonging, or her silence for peace. It is the profound recognition that she is not an extension of another's will, but the source of her own. I once said, the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are, and the path to that becoming is not paved with the approval of others. It is forged in the crucible of self-loyalty. When a woman dares to center her pleasure, her joy, and her creative hunger, something ancient awakens. She becomes a wellspring, not a vessel. Her erotic energy is no longer something she gives away in exchange. For love, it is something she owns, something she tends like a sacred flame. I recall in my practice a woman who had lived her entire adult life in the service of others, children, husband, community, until one day, she sat before me and said, "I have never asked myself what I want." Her voice trembled not with shame but with the awe of discovery. That question, simple as it was, marked the beginning of her rebirth. As she began to follow her own desire, her body changed. Her spirit lifted. She did not become selfish in the way the world condemns. She became sovereign, in the way the soul remembers. And here lies the secret. The man who cannot meet her in that fire will fall away, not because she pushes him, but because her light reveals what cannot stay. The mature woman does not chase love. She calls it forth by being the flame. I have often said, wholeness is not achieved by cutting off a portion of one's being, but by integration of the contraries, and nowhere is this more evident than in the body of a woman who no longer apologizes for her imperfections. In her skin, weathered, scarred, and stretched by time, there is no shame. There is myth. There is memory. There is life. The lines upon her face are not flaws to be erased, but sacred hieroglyphs of experience, each one etched with the ink of endurance, laughter, grief, and pleasure. Modernity teaches us to worship the mask, to worship the flawless, the sterile, the eternally youthful. But the psyche does not long for perfection. It longs for truth. It longs for that which is alive, whole, and real. And so when a woman dares to wear her age not as a burden but as a crown, something ancient stirs in those who behold her. She is not merely seen, she is remembered. As one remembers the mountain or the storm, she is nature unconcealed. I recall working with a woman who once confessed that she had stopped dancing when her thighs began to jiggle. She laughed bitterly, ashamed. But as our work deepened, she began to dance again, not in front of anyone, but alone, barefoot in her kitchen. One day, she told me, I watched myself in the mirror, and for the first time I didn't flinch. That is the erotic art of wholeness, not the pursuit of perfection, but the full embrace of all that you are, in motion, in stillness, in time. To be erotically irresistible is not to be flawless. It is to be unhidden. It is to show the world your texture, your terrain, your truth. And when a mature woman no longer conceals the parts of herself once deemed unlovable, she becomes a living invitation to the sacred. She is not fragmented, she is mythic, not polished, powerful, not a statue but a storm. There is a profound transformation that occurs when a woman ceases to observe herself through the fragmented lens of judgment and instead descends fully into the eternal now. Your vision will become clear only when you can look into your own heart. I once said, and this clarity is born not from the mind's endless chatter, but from the surrender to presence itself. It is here, in this sacred stillness, that a mature woman becomes wholly embodied, no longer merely a performer trying to be seen, but a force summoning what is true. When she inhabits her body with unwavering attention, the dissonance between who she is and who she believes she should be dissolves. The self-objectification that once divided her awareness disappears, and she is no longer seducing with calculated moves or rehearsed smiles. Instead, she calls forth connection and desire with the sheer weight of her being. This is not a charm crafted for others. It is a profound invitation to witness her soul. I remember a woman who came to me burdened by self-doubt, forever watching herself as if through the eyes of a harsh spectator. Through our work, she learned to stop resisting the present moment and to welcome all sensations, pain, joy, longing as part of her living experience. Gradually, she ceased the habitual gaze outside and turned inward, becoming a vessel of presence. When she re-entered the world, there was a magnetic shift. The air itself seemed to change. She became an oracle in the simplest sense, not by speaking riddles, but by embodying a truth so palpable that others could not help but be drawn in. This total presence is the secret core of irresistible power. It is the descent into the eternal now, where time loses its grip and what remains is pure, undeniable life. There is a hidden force within every woman, a shadow self waiting to be known, to be embraced rather than feared. In each of us there is another whom we do not know, I once reflected, speaking to the mystery that dwells in the depths of the psyche. When a mature woman dares to stand in divine defiance, she steps boldly into this shadow, no longer seeking the world's permission to claim her power. This rebellion is not an act of destruction, but of profound creation, a reclaiming of the sacred fire that has long been subdued by society's expectations. I have witnessed women who, through their journey into the shadow, transform from timid supplicants into sovereign forces. They refuse to be constrained by the cultural molds that demand softness or compliance, refusing to shrink to fit a smaller world. Instead, they embody the archetype of Kali, the fierce destroyer of falsehoods, in the boardroom, commanding respect, wielding authority without apology. They embody Lilith, the wild and untamed feminine, in the bedroom, free from the chains of guilt or shame, radiant in their authentic desire. One patient of mine, a woman who once hid her ambition beneath layers of modesty, found herself awakening to this inner defiance when she embraced her shadow. Including her anger and rebellious urges, she discovered a source of power she had never known. It was as if a dark flame kindled inside her, illuminating not only her own path, but blazing a trail for others who had been silent. This divine defiance is erotic because it is raw, real, and unyielding. It shakes the foundations of the old order and invites a new dance between light and shadow, power and surrender. It is the fearless embrace of one's whole self, and therein lies its irresistible allure. The body, often subdued by the harsh voices of judgment and repression, holds within it the language of the soul. The soul demands your folly, not your wisdom, I once observed, emphasizing that true living requires surrender to the irrational, the passionate, the deeply felt. When a mature woman steps into unapologetic sensuality, she no longer negotiates with shame or seeks approval. Instead, she honors her body as a temple, a sacred vessel where the divine and the earthly meet. I recall the countless times I witnessed women heal not by renouncing their flesh, but by embracing it fully, feeling their bodies as the ultimate sanctuary. This reclamation is an act of courage, a return to primal truth. When she moves, she is not performing for the world's gaze. She moves because her body speaks in a language older than words. Her hips, her curves become altars where desire and spirit intertwine, where every sway is a sacred ritual. Consider the woman who, after years of denying her sensual nature, finally allowed herself to dance freely, unabashed and raw. She discovered that her pleasure was no longer a secret sin but a hymn, a celebration of life itself. Her laughter, her breath, her very scent wove a myth around her, an aura impossible to resist. This is not mere exhibition. It is the soul's folly made visible, the wild intelligence of the body reclaiming its sovereignty. In this unapologetic embrace of sensuality, the mature woman steps beyond the world's shallow definitions. She does not ask for permission to inhabit her desire. She simply is, and in that being, she becomes a living testament to the sacred union of flesh and spirit. There is a profound power in embracing the parts of ourselves that society bids us hide, the shadow aspects we often deem unseemly or dangerous. The shadow is a moral problem that challenges the whole ego personality, for no one can become conscious of the shadow without considerable moral effort. I once reflected, knowing that to face one's darkness is to embark on a journey of courageous self-reckoning. For a mature woman, this journey is not a burden, but a gateway to an erotic magnetism beyond superficial charm. I have seen how women who shy away from their rage, grief, or desire fragment their being, offering only a fraction of themselves to the world. But the woman who dares to gather these parts, who embraces her anger as fire, her sorrow as depth, her lust as sacred longing, becomes something extraordinary. She transcends the narrow roles imposed by culture and becomes a living myth, a walking archetype of wholeness. She is neither merely the girl nor the mother. She is the feminine self, a force incarnate. In my practice, I witnessed how the integration of shadow transformed not only individual lives but entire relationships. A woman who once feared her own intensity learned to wield it as a beacon, drawing others not through pretense, but through the raw, undeniable power of authenticity. Her presence was a call to awaken something primal in those who met her, an erotic pull that defied explanation but was deeply felt. This is the woman who does not fracture herself for the comfort of others. She stands complete, her darkness and light fused in a sacred embrace. To touch her, to know her, is to confront the archetypal mystery of the feminine, both terrifying and breathtakingly beautiful. It is here, in the union of shadow and light, that true seduction lives. A woman who has mastered the art of fierce boundaries wields a power often misunderstood in our culture, A power rooted not in rejection but in sacred discernment. I have observed throughout my work that many confuse the act of saying no as a shutting down, a cold withdrawal from connection. Yet a no spoken from the depths of the soul is not a door slammed shut. It is a gateway swung wide open to something far greater. I once said, a man who has not passed through the inferno of his passions has never overcome them. A truth that applies equally to both masculine and feminine energies. When a mature woman declares her limits with unwavering clarity, she does not ward off desire or intimacy, she refines it. Her boundaries become a crucible, a test of worthiness that demands the masculine spirit to rise in full presence and integrity. Only those who have faced their own inner fires with courage can truly meet her. In my clinical experience, women who embraced this fierce discernment often found that their relationships transformed from shallow pursuits to profound alliances. The power of her no was paradoxically the greatest aphrodisiac it stirred, longing not through availability but through challenge. It summoned not desperation but respect, not compliance but authentic engagement. Such boundaries are not the constructs of fear or control. They are the sovereign declaration of a woman who knows her value beyond all external validation. Her refusal is an invitation to meet her on a higher plane, to honor the sacred space she inhabits. It is this fierce clarity, born from self-knowledge and shadow work, that makes her irresistible because she is whole, grounded and unapologetically herself. The strength to say no is the secret flame that calls forth only those worthy to walk beside her, making her presence a force no one can ignore. Erotic intelligence transcends the mere realm of physicality. It dwells in the sacred interplay of mind, spirit, and emotion. I have long observed that many mistake eroticism for surface allure alone. But the truly irresistible woman wields a far deeper power, the power of a mind that dances with mystery and depth. As I have said, thinking is difficult, that's why most people judge. This difficulty is precisely where erotic intelligence flourishes, in the courage to explore, to question, to feel with both head and heart. A mature woman who embraces her erotic intelligence understands that her intellect is not separate from her sensuality, but woven intimately into its fabric. Her curiosity becomes a kind of foreplay for the soul, inviting those around her to embark on journeys of discovery beyond the skin. It is in her thoughtful words, her subtle wit, and the layers of meaning behind her gaze that she initiates a deeper connection, an alchemical process where attraction becomes transformation. In my own experience, those women who cultivated this sacred mind held an almost mystical allure. Their conversations were not mere exchanges, but portals, gateways to greater self-awareness and shared understanding. They did not simply ignite desire in others, they turned desire inward, encouraging introspection and awakening the hidden parts of the psyche. Consider the ancient oracles or philosophers, who were revered not only for their wisdom, but for the sacred magnetism they carried. The mature woman with erotic intelligence becomes such an oracle in modern form. She invites the masculine to step beyond superficial lust into a dance of intellect and spirit, awakening a hunger for connection that is as profound as it is primal. Thus, erotic intelligence is the quiet, potent flame within her, a sacred force that transforms attraction into an invitation to explore the depths of human experience. It is this integration of mind and sensuality that renders her truly irresistible. The ultimate act of erotic liberation is the radical decision to choose oneself not as a mere option, but as a sovereign decree. I have often reflected on the profound terror and immense courage required to accept oneself fully. For the most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely. This acceptance is not a passive surrender but a fierce reclamation of agency. It means stepping beyond the conditioning that taught her to wait for validation, to be selected, to be claimed. Instead, she steps into her own power and becomes the author of her own desire. In my encounters with individuals on the path to individuation, I observed that the moment one ceases to seek external approval, a transformation occurs. The woman who chooses herself does not cast about for love as a fragmented soul might. Rather, she embodies love whole, undivided, and unapologetically alive. This self-choice is not rooted in vanity or self-centeredness, but in the profound knowledge that her value is intrinsic, not granted. This liberation echoes the ancient mysteries where the initiate must face herself without masks or mirrors, embracing every shadow and light within. It is the sacred rite of passage into wholeness and freedom. When a woman claims this truth, she becomes a force beyond possession or control, a wild, radiant spirit who commands attention not by pursuit but by presence. She no longer chases love because she emanates it. This emanation is magnetic and eternal, leaving an imprint on all who encounter her. It is in this act of self-choosing that the mature woman reveals the deepest secret of erotic power. That love is not a prize to be won, but a state of being to be embodied. In choosing herself, she becomes the living embodiment of love's boundless freedom. As we conclude this exploration of the hidden vices that empower the mature woman's irresistible eroticism, let us remember that these are not mere indulgences or transgressions. They are sacred keys unlocking the profound depths of her being. To embrace bold vulnerability, sacred selfishness, proud imperfection, and all the facets we have spoken of is to embark on the heroic journey toward wholeness. It is a path fraught with shadow and light, rebellion and surrender, but it is the only way to embody true power and magnetism. I urge you not to shy away from these truths but to meet them with courage and honesty. Look inward and reclaim your sovereignty over desire, presence, and self-love. Do not wait for permission from the world or others. Give yourself permission to be wholly and unapologetically you, for it is in this fearless self-choosing that the mature woman transcends mere attraction and becomes a force of nature, unforgettable and free. Step boldly into your complexity. Integrate your shadow and light. Set fierce boundaries and celebrate your sensuality. Let your mind, body, and soul dance in unison. And watch as the world responds to the power of your authentic presence. This is your invitation to live and love as the radiant whole that you are.